And greetings, Internet, greetings, Facebook, greetings, YouTube. It is so wonderful and so pleasant to have you all here with me today on this Friday night. If you are here with me on the live, be sure to comment down below, #TeamLive. And if you are here with me on the replay, don't worry, we love you just as much, all the same. And be sure to comment down below, #TeamReplay. Today, on this very, very special episode of My Cool Friends, I have with me today another very, very special guest. I met her through my excruciating large network of online entrepreneurs. Please help me welcome to the virtual stage, Miss Tara Bushaw.
Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you. Tara, I see that you have definitely decorated your background a little bit since we last spoke for the holiday season. And for those of you that might not be familiar with Tara, could you tell us a little bit about your backstory?
Yeah, so I am a married mom of 8 from Minnesota, and I homeschool 5 of the kids, still remaining at home due to some medical complications that my family has experienced. It started, well, I have a really long backstory, but just to kind of give you the start of my whole entrepreneurial journey of starting into the coaching realm. In 2013, my husband suffered a stroke at the age of 37. And a few months later, our son was unexpectedly born with Down syndrome. And throughout my journey of being in the hospital with my husband and with my son, I saw just a lot of families were struggling with having to choose between their family and work, and were struggling with, potentially facing losing everything that they had worked for. And so I knew from that point forward that with my experience in freelancing and being my own boss, that I needed to take that and help other families that were experiencing similar situations and needed an alternative to the 9-to-5. So that is really where that fits in. Although for 20 years I was a transcriptionist, and that's what I did in my freelancing career. So I was able to work alongside their hospital beds, be in the hospital with them while I was working, never missing a paycheck, and being able to take time off as appropriate that when I needed to, because I was the boss. And so it's super important for me to share that message with other people.
That is incredible. And especially with all of the ups and downs that this past year has presented people with, there's a lot of people that can relate to your story. And so my first question to you, with everything that you've just shared with us, is what sort of advice could you give to someone listening right now? It's like, oh man, like she's gone through all these medical complications, and yet she's still persevered by utilizing this great platform that is the internet. And I feel like I'm struggling to just simply make an account on Zoom. What sort of advice, you giggle as I say that, what sort of advice would you give to these people who feel like the mountain is just so high?
So, I like to look at it, and I tell my students, like, a staircase has to be built one step at a time, right? Like you, when you have a staircase, you don't just have the whole staircase. It doesn't just exist. It has to be built one step at a time. And that's no different with any other sort of journey. You have to get past the first step before you can get to the second and before you can get to the third. It's all a process. And I think so many people expect instant results with everything that they're doing, that it just the whole idea of building the staircase seems so overwhelming. But like if you can just tackle that one step and get to that first, then look at the second step and move forward that way, I think that helps. Because, I really teach people, like, you have to figure out what skill you want to use, so in terms of business, like, you can't go and learn a software if you don't even know what skill you're going to serve people with. You can't exactly name your business if you don't know what you're going to provide as a service. Like, there's certain steps that a person needs to take in order to even get to the end result anyway. And so I just encourage people to just focus on one thing and then move forward and tackling each thing after that. Because the faster you can tackle the first step to get to the second, to get to the third, the faster you're going to get your full staircase. But if you never start, you're never going to have it. And I mean, it really is, when people look at the big picture, it does feel overwhelming, and it is. And so I think people just need to take a step back and just realize, okay, this is what I want to do. These are the steps I need to do to get there. And then this is the one I have to tackle first.
That's such a fantastic piece of advice. A lot of times we're seeing how big the mountain is and not celebrating what progress we have made so far while climbing it. And so tell us a little bit more about your goals. Tell us about the people that you help and how you aim to help them.
So I really focus on helping parents and caregivers. And what I mean by that, obviously, is parents. It could be parents who want to be home to raise their kids. There's a lot of people who they want to stay home and raise their babies, but they need to have an income, and so they feel like they don't have a choice. And then there are the parents who need to be home, whether it's because they've become a caregiver or because in our current climate of COVID, and they're now having to school their children or be home or whatever. And then it's the caregivers, and that could be the caregivers who are taking care of elderly parents or a spouse or any sort of family member. So basically I really focus on letting them know that they can fulfill the responsibilities of family, which is really where they want to be and should be. And yet at the same time, they can still have their own separate identity and having a career that they can do at the same exact time. I think people are under this impression that they have to choose either or. And that's just not the case. You can have both. And I mean, it does take perseverance to have both, especially when you're first getting started. But once you've gotten the routine down and you figured it out, it's very possible to have both. And I mean, I've got 8 kids. I'm able to, pull this off. And so it just is about the learning process. And as far as like, what do I want them to know? Again, that they can have both, but also that it doesn't take any sort of super ninja skills to do this. It could be just something as simple as what you do at your current job right now. And a lot of people, they identify themselves like as their job title instead of understanding that you can take a piece of what your job tasks are and turn that into a monetizable business with other small business owners. So for instance, I was a medical records clerk who also happened to do some of the transcription at the mental health clinic that I was working at. And when I decided that I was going to stay home with my kids and I wasn't going to return to work, I was approached both by the facility that I was working for and a doctor who was getting ready to leave on his own and asked me if I would continue the transcription digitally or online. And of course I was like, heck yeah. And then from that, I realized how many other facilities all throughout the United States were looking for people to fulfill that same service. So I went from being a medical records clerk to taking that piece of a transcriptionist and pulling it out and turning that into my career. And it ended up being a 20-year career. So it could be as something as simple as curriculum creation. It could be transcription. It could be writing. It could be general administrative skills. Like whatever people are experiencing, they can take that piece and go serve businesses online. I mean, I've had clients in Malaysia, so that's really the beauty of it as well, is you're not confined to just your local community anymore. You can tap into the internet. So that's what I want people to know. Like it's you have literally the world at your fingertips to be able to do whatever you want.
Absolutely. It's this thing that we carry around in our pockets all the time gives us that gateway access to the world. I want to dive in a little bit to a couple parts of your story, because you said like, oh man, I have 8 kids and I've been able to accomplish like these things online, and sometimes like when we're listening to our when someone's listening to our stories from the outside, it can be just so easy to say like, oh man, well, that's easy for you to say, Tara, because you've done it already. You've figured out this techie things, but I'm like, I don't think I can do that. So I would love for you to share with us a story. What is a point in your journey when you came up against just an impossible challenge that you felt like you would never be able to just get over, that you felt like a point when you felt like giving up, but you clearly didn't, because now you're sitting here with me?
There's been several times, I think, as an entrepreneur and as a freelancer, you do get to a point where it sometimes would just seem easier to just go get a job, because you do have to put a lot of effort into, for me with the transcription, I had to put effort into finding clients. And this was, of course, before the world of the internet when I started, or not before the world of the internet, but like before Facebook, I should say.
What year was this?
So I started freelancing in 2001, and I don't think I joined Facebook until 2008. So all of my reach out and all of the things that I did were all through networking with people that I knew, and it came from referrals. And so that was my experience starting out. But then even when I moved into the online space and I started joining Facebook groups and things like that, a lot of the work still came from referrals, and it still does. I still get people referred to me for different things. So it really is, the journey is about networking. But I mean, it is before you experience the world of networking, it seems like it's almost impossible, because like you said, when people don't know where to start or they don't know how to get going, it does feel like, oh, this is just going to be too much and I'm just going to give up and I'm just going to get a job. And there's a lot of people that don't make it into the entrepreneurial space or freelancing space because they get overwhelmed with the idea of starting. And so, there was times where I felt like, okay, this is just too much, I want to quit. But then I actually faced the whole situation where, you have to fill out the applications and you got to go for the interviews and you have to do all of that stuff. Well, those were things that I didn't want to do. And the idea of putting my kids back in daycare, there was just, I had to sit myself down and I had to decide, which one was I going to pick? Which hard was I going to pick? Because both of them were going to be hard. It was either I was going to face this insurmountable hill or mountain, like you say, with trying to get clients and make my business work, or I had to face putting my kids back in daycare and going back to the 8 to 5 rat race of being at work every day. And so I literally just had to decide which one is more important to me and which one am I more willing to fight for. And obviously we know what I did, and there's a lot of people that do that, but it really does hinge on the why of which you're moving forward. I do think that entrepreneurs have to have that why to push them through when things get difficult, because it is hard to get past the whole, I don't know what to do. It's hard to take the reins because you don't know what you don't know. So it's hard to take the reins and dive in to this world, to finding the resources. Because that's really what it's all about, is being resourceful and finding that, attaching yourself to people that are doing the same thing that you want to do. And I think you, as well as I, know how important that is. So there, I mean, I think all of us want to give up at some point, but we just have to face which one is more important to us.
Absolutely. And I heard it phrased in a different way on a YouTube video I watched recently. It's that you get to pick your sacrifices. You
Right.
don't get to not make a sacrifice. And at some point in your life, you're going to experience these emotions like pain and dread and why am I doing this in my life? It's just what form is that emotion going to take is completely up to you. And this year has definitely, like, for me personally, this year has definitely shined a light on that, where I've had these emotions of like, oh man, why am I doing this? It would be so much easier to go back and just simply get a job or get a paycheck or like not do this online stuff. But if this year has shown anything, it's that like a lot of times the alternative route isn't as safe as we might think. And so that's also another great example of that sort of conundrum, is that like sometimes safety is also within that paradox. Like you get to pick your realm of safety. Where that realm is living is up to you.
Right. And that is totally it, because I think a lot of people do think that the job is safe. And then all of a sudden they find out that they don't have a job tomorrow. And a lot of times these employers don't give people the ability to go and find a job. So when I lost my 9 to 5, because like I said, I went and told them that I wasn't going to come into the office anymore. And they actually asked, to contract with me. So I was doing my job from home for quite a few years. And then they let me know that, they had gotten somebody in office and for a portion of what I was doing. And they also replaced a portion of what I was doing with software. And so they let me know like that I was going to be done, but they gave me like 2-3 months notice. Like they gave me time, and there's not a lot of places that do that. Usually you get the pink slip and you're out the door. And so then you're left scrambling with having to try to find a new job. And in today's climate, are you able to find that? I don't know. For some people, the answer is no. If you're somebody that's in the restaurant industry right now, you're not going to be able to, especially here in Minnesota. And now I just saw in New York, they're going to be closing down. But there's some states where the restaurant industries are closed, and there's people, that's the only experience they have. And now you can't go and get a job. And I think it's important to note that when you're freelancing and you create your own opportunity, you're able to gain the skills to be able to always go out and create another client, create another opportunity. And so there's that, you're equipped with the skill in that way to be able to continue bringing in an income, getting another client, getting another, you can always pivot, because once you're over here in this side of the world, like you understand that it's not just, you're not confined to just one thing. Like you all of a sudden see all these opportunities before you. I mean, there's affiliate marketing, there's e-commerce, there's print on demand, there's the freelancing, there's coaching, there's, there's so many things over here that you can get started with virtually no experience, quite honestly, because there's so many small businesses willing to give out internships or the, things like that. And so I'm a big proponent in people being sufficient, self-sufficient in their skills and understanding that they always have the ability to learn. And with my homeschooling with the kids, like that was one of the things, like my older kids went to public school. I went to public school, but with my younger kids, I've really dove into the world of homeschooling and figuring out how I can equip them the best. Right. And one thing that I've really learned and that has really, that I've really drilled into my own head personally is that we have the ability to learn anywhere and everywhere. It doesn't need to take place in a classroom. And I've especially learned that on this entrepreneurial journey. Like I've literally given myself more of a college education than I got when I was in college. And I think people really should understand that you can learn the things you need to learn on your own without having to go back to college and go into $30,000, $40,000, $80,000 in debt.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. It's fascinating. Like I told this analogy to someone last week, is that we have access to all of the knowledge of human history and we use it to argue with people. And and it's like you could literally, like, people make YouTube documentaries, people have books out there, like audio books, you don't even have to read them, of like of things that like you would have normally paid like thousands, like people pay thousands for in like courses, and you can just go there and get them. And yet I heard a stand-up comedian say like the college was the worst money I've ever spent. I paid someone thousands of dollars to recommend books to me of which I did not read.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so a lot of times it's just like what you need is that motivation to then go and do it.
Right.
The knowledge is out there for you. What it takes is like the willingness to go and seek it out and then put it into that application.
That and surrounding yourself with other people that are doing it as well, because it's when you're around everybody that's just job, that's all you think there is. But when you see other people are succeeding in their business and you have somebody to help hold you accountable and make you realize that, when you're seeing other people diving into these things that are hard, it allows you to believe in yourself. Like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So I do really believe that, putting yourself out there and making friends with people who are doing the same thing as you is really important in this journey. And I know for me personally, with my students, I really try to make sure that they know that they're fully supported by me. I don't just sell them something and then ditch them and say, here you go. They know that they're supported, because I know 100% without a shadow of a doubt that honestly that support and just having that network are the things that are going to push you to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say that when you started off, when you were creating your plan, was that part of an integral part of getting you to where you are, is surrounding yourself with the like-minded people?
Oh, 100%. Because everybody that I surrounded myself with they were all people on the same journey. And so when you think you're just hanging out with them, or when you think you're just chatting with them on Facebook, right? Like, you are literally learning bits and pieces of information all the time. And so I would say now it's interesting, because when I jump on a call with my students and they're looking at something very specific, and all of a sudden they'll ask a question and something will just pop into my head and be like, oh, I remember hearing my friends say that. And so this is what you should go do. So it is very, very big part. I mean, it's not to say that you can't do it if you don't surround yourself with those type of people, because obviously sometimes it's a learning process. I did my whole transcription business with like I was the only freelancer that I knew of, in my area. And so, I mean, I did it on my own, but I do feel like I would have catapulted much bigger and made, a lot more than I did if I would have surrounded myself with the people that were doing something similar to what I was doing. But I didn't know at the time. Well, obviously between 2001 and 2008, social media wasn't a thing, or it wasn't a widely used thing. And then after that point, that's really 2013 is really when I started realizing, this whole other world over here with the coaching and consulting and things like that you could actually teach people what you want to do. But there again, I didn't know that existed before then. And so it really just takes research. It takes just diving into things to find out, because you're not going to learn anything if you're not out there seeking it. Like, it doesn't just usually fall in your lap. Yeah.
And it's interesting that you bring up the social media part again. Because I noticed personally that when I started like transitioning the group of people that I hung out with, like from like nerdy people who played video games all the time to then like, being honest here, to like then like entrepreneur people who like spent all their time like asking a question like, how can I grow my business to like the goals that I'm trying to like aspire to? All of a sudden, my Facebook timeline adapted to that. Yeah. And so like this is one of those like additive ways that like we're not just blowing smoke here. Like your actual surroundings, like, oh hey, like Facebook knows like, oh hey, we're gonna put these things in front of you purposefully to like help you start growing. So like not just like from a mental and emotional side, like of like the top 5 people around you like shape you, but also like the actual like now like you were saying, like compared to 2001, like it's an actual like gateway of information that's being flushed in front of you, the newsfeed, the YouTube videos, all of these things that we're saying, go and seek out this information. It'll eventually just get pushed in front of you if these are the people that you're hanging out with. So this is a fascinating conversation that we've just rabbit holed into.
Yeah, it really is, because I went off into like, I mean, I think about like when I went off into the coaching world, I mean, obviously I started looking around and the book that showed up in my timeline was Expert Secrets. That was the book that showed up in my timeline. And from there, it was obviously I got the book, I joined the Facebook group, and then I started going to events and I started meeting my friends. And now like I'm closer with my internet friends, some of whom I've only ever been in the same room with one time, right? Or some I've never even met. Like I'm closer with them than I am with my real life friends, because that's the world that I've involved myself in. But before that, like I said, before social media, I mean, there wasn't a way to connect with people outside of your world.
Right.
And so I think that is where the internet brings us. I mean, it is a wonderful thing, and it can also be a bad thing. But it has proven to be a really awesome thing in my life, because it has allowed me to become someone that I could have never imagined that I would have been. And now I've got this ability to be able to help people. And even just like in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I've had some new people come into my program, and they've already gotten their first clients, and they're, messaging me, and they're so excited, and they're like, I feel like a legit business owner. And, and it's like, there's no better feeling than that. Like to see that you're making a difference in other people's lives, which, it's just so awesome. And so that gives you fuel to keep going, even when things seem hard. You get those little wins, and you just got to remember to constantly be stacking those up, so that you remember why you're doing this and why you're putting yourself through these hard times. Sometimes it seems like. So
yeah. It reminds me of what we talked about previously in our conversation, where we say like, oh, celebrate the first, like every single step up that staircase. Right. And so I'd love to know your version of this beginning story. So for you just shared that like, oh, one of your like people just like, I was like, they come to you and like, I just got my first clients. Like, first of all, congratulations. That is a hand clap. What would you say is your version of that like step up the staircase in your journey? What would you feel like is that moment where it's like, I feel like I'm an actual business person because I just climbed the first step? What's that part of your journey?
In my journey, it was when I started my Facebook group, and I started getting people, that were coming in, and they were interested in what I had to say and in the information that I had to share. And I think that was really the first realization, was that there are other people seeking the knowledge that I have. And even more so, probably the most validating part was the first time like I sold one of my programs, because that meant that what I was providing for free and the time that I was spending with these people, with my students, that they valued that. And so I think for me, it was like, because sometimes you need to believe it, right? I mean, you need to see it to believe it. I mean, we hear that phrase all the time. And so for me, I saw all these people out there doing this coaching thing, and I saw all these people out there creating these programs and these courses and whatever. And of course I wanted to do that because I wanted to make an impact. But there's always that doubt in yourself that's like, well, I don't know if I can do it. Just like what you were talking about earlier. I don't know if I can do it. Like, and it took me literally more than a month to calm my nerves and wrap myself up to actually be able to do a Facebook Live in my Facebook group. And I remember seeing like these other coaches and stuff are like, oh, it gets better, it gets easier. And I'm like, I don't believe that at all. Well, now here we are, and I can jump on live at the flip of a switch, and it's no big deal. So it was funny. So for me, it was seeing it to believe it, right? Once there was that person who came in and said, I want to buy what you have, I want to work with you. That was really I think the turning step from, that was like the first real, like, okay, first step completed. Like I've got that belief going on now. Like I have what people want. And that was really a big validation for me. And I've been able to just build upon that ever since. Because I knew I was capable, right? I knew I was capable. I knew that I was a resourceful person. I knew that I had information that would help people, but we all have that self-doubt. We all have that mountain that we have to climb inside our own head. And so once I was able to conquer that, it was like, okay, cool. Now on to the next one. Now on to the next step, So that was kind of my first validation.
That's just fantastic to hear that like every single person that has like no matter what dollar amount you put it in there, it's like every single person that has made like 10x, 12x in a business online has had to conquer that mountain.
Right.
And I've even had people like say to me, just say like, oh man, Ben, like you're doing all this like show like every single week, and it's like I don't know how you do it. And I'm just like, there was a mountain. There was like, I promise you, there was a point when I like all of my lives sucked.
Yeah.
And and like I did not want to go on Facebook Live for any sort of money. And now I just like turn on the camera and like, hello world.
Right. And it is totally it. And it's so funny because I will tell my students, I'll be like, go back to the Facebook group and go look and watch my very first videos. And you can hear my voice shaking, and you can see like I'm constantly looking away from the camera. Like I'll look at it and then I'm looking away and off to the side because I'm like so nervous. And you can see that compared to like today's videos where now I can hop on and it's like no big deal. And so it's like, dang it, they were right. Like they told me it would end up being no big deal. And I fought it and I fought it and I fought it for so long. And here they were right. So
some of my very first YouTube videos I did with a laptop. No microphone. I only used the default microphone that was in the laptop, and it was sitting on a TV tray. And then I just sat on the couch and I did a video, and I used the default Photos app in Windows to make my videos. And that was it. And even before that, I didn't even have an iPhone. I had like the iPod Touch that I would email my videos to, and I would be like, okay guys, we're gonna make a video right now. Hi YouTube. And those were some of my first videos, and oh my god, they're like once I gain the confidence to look at my own cringe, we'll do a react video to some of those, but for now those are gonna stay closeted.
Right. I hear you.
But oh my. So Tara, I must ask you. There's something scrolling at the bottom of the screen right here. This is laptopaccelerator.com/ebook. What is this mystery that keeps scrolling at the bottom of the screen? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the ebook, it's actually it's a short ebook, but basically it's the 5-step framework that I used for people to accelerate their freelance journey. It explains how you can get into it, how it all makes sense for you, how you can take a skill, how you can actually monetize it, how you can get paid before you actually do the work, which is mind blowing to some people who are used to doing 2 weeks worth of work before getting paid. And I even have a list in there of how you can find some of your first clients. But really, I want people to know that are watching this, like, it does not require selling. I know a lot of people who are looking to try to work from home or anywhere. They worry about having to sell because that's what we've been sold, right? That you have to do the whole MLM thing or the network marketing, the pyramid schemes in order to make any money. And this is actually taking a skill that you have obtained and helping a small business who is not in a position to hire somebody full time. And a lot of times that can happen just through networking. And just a quick share a short story about how exactly that works. I mean, I already told you about the doctor that approached me at my job. But when my daughter was 3, she was diagnosed with severe hearing loss. And so we were told she was going to need hearing aids for the rest of her life. And so in the process of getting those and being at a doctor appointment for that, her audiologist, we were just having a conversation and he asked, what do I do? You know, what brought us there? And we're having this conversation. And of course I was explaining to him that I was a transcriptionist, and he was like, oh, really? He's like, I need one of those. And we started talking, and boom, I got myself a client for he was a client of mine for 7 years. And
Wow.
So a lot of times, it's just networking. And then he had a friend that worked at a university, a professor that worked at the local university, and they needed a transcriptionist. And so he referred me to him. And so I ended up having several clients that were all on referral. And then even when I moved into doing some other freelancing that I won't go into, the same thing, all that whole business was built on referrals as well. And so it really is just about networking. You don't have to sell. You just have a conversation with people about what you do, just like you would if you had a job. And sometimes you just never know who happens to need the service you're providing. So I talk about all that in the ebook. And yeah, you can go to the laptoplifeaccelerator.com/ebook and download that for free.
Absolutely. That's all fantastic. And personally, I will testify to everything that Tara just shared with you guys, because I have done that myself for my business, and it has worked out fantastically. I like to call it sometimes old school marketing, because that's what we, as she giggles.
Right. No, but it's true. It's just good old fashioned conversations with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we did before the internet and
exactly.
And all these commercials. We would just simply have good old fashioned conversations with people, and people would ask what you did, and that's how things would get passed around. It's good old fashioned goodwill, and that's how people would grow, and it still works. It really, yeah.
No, I like to look at it as I tell the people in my group, I always say that it's similar to if you think about a contractor or a plumber or a hair salon, you need those services. And just like a business, you need certain services, and you're going to go and seek out the people that can provide that service to you. And so it isn't you have to convince people to work with you like you would an MLM, try to convince people to buy your product. It's not like that at all. It's people end up seeking you out if they need that service. And so I really just like to hammer that down, that it doesn't require selling, because a lot of people just get that in their head because that's what they think it takes to have a business, and it's not. So I like to use those analogies because they're good ones, because they're real life analogies that real people utilize. So, or services that people utilize,
Yeah, absolutely. Tara, where can people find you on this magical place that we've been talking about called the internet?
Yeah, so if you download the ebook, there'll be a link to my group in that ebook. But if you just want to skip the ebook and go right to finding my group, it is called Laptop Life Accelerator, and it is a community for beginning and growing freelancers. So
awesome. You can find Tara on her group, the Laptop Life Accelerator. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a fantastic episode of My Cool Friends. You can catch us every Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, I know. I do this every single week, and I still screw this up. Every Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, we have a special announcement. We're going to be going to 2 times a week. You can catch us not only every Friday, but you can catch us also every Tuesday now at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Well, that means that I have to make a new graphic for all of this now. So you can catch us. I know. Feels super, super special now. Feel 2 times as special now. So you can catch us 2 times a week. We're going to be back Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with a super special guest for all of you guys. I hope you are just as festivus as Tara's background is. And I hope you guys have a safe and a happy weekend.